Today, we will look at the journey of Royal Enfield and we will look to essentially understand these four important product management lessons with the examples of what Royal Enfield has been doing. So we'll start with crossing the chasm. We'll talk about jobs to be done. We'll talk about how important it is to listen to your customers. It sounds very simple, it becomes very difficult because you get bombarded with a lot of inputs and then it becomes difficult to decide which one is important. And then I also want to very much emphasize the concept of the complete product. One of the best brands which does this very well, actually, the concept of complete product. So, very quick disclaimers. These are my personal views, don't represent any company or whatever. And then the rules for product management sometimes are interpreted differently in different organizations. So please take it with a pinch of salt. So let's talk about crossing the chasm first of all. So I want to start with a concept called diffusion of innovations. We'll spend a few slides on this and then we will jump to how Royal Enfield has mastered this very well. Now, this basically starts with a person called Everett Rogers. He had published a paper long ago, I think in the 70s or the 80s, if I'm not wrong. It was called The Diffusion of Innovations. Okay. And it has a very interesting concept that it covered, and that concept has stood the test of time. It still applies to most new products launched out there in the market. This particular concept essentially says that whenever a new product is launched out there in the market, there is some percentage of audience, some percentage of your customers who would be the first buyers of that new technology or product, even if the technology or product is not yet mature, right? We call them innovators and sometimes we call them early adopters. These are those loyal Apple phone fans who queue up outside the Apple stores to buy the latest iPhone 15, 16 or whatever, even without knowing how good it is, even without waiting for the review. Right? These are those really loyalist enthusiasts. Sometimes they are called tech enthusiasts. Those customers who would be the first ones to buy a product. On the other extreme, completely other extreme, is what is called as the laggards, right? The laggards are those customers and those audiences who, no matter what, will be the last ones to adopt a new product or so when the iPhone first came out and the full touchscreen phones came out, there was a bunch of users who still kept on clinging to the QWERTY keypad phones from BlackBerry. And BlackBerry still kept on making it for a few years after that as well, even though the market share was declining very sharply. So those are the users that put in the category of laggards, those who will be some of the last users to adopt a new technology. While we already said that, those Apple fanatic fans who line up outside Apple stores to buy a new iPhone launched, they are sort of the innovators and the early adopters, right? I don't want to say, don't interpret that all of us are perpetually innovators, early adopters versus laggards for all kinds of products. It depends on our liking and our reaction to different kinds of products. For example, I may be an early adopter for watches, for example, right? I may like to buy any new model of smartwatch, digital watch that comes out in the market, while, someone out of you may not want to buy all the new watches, technically advanced digital watches that come out there, and may still be clinging on to your analog watches. So I am an early adopter for a new digital watch, and some of you might be laggards for a new digital watch. While for something else, for example, goggles, I may be a laggard and you may be an early adopter. So this is all very subjective, and none of us are permanent laggards or early adopters. It all depends on our liking of that particular product area. Okay, so with this background, I want to switch to the results of this survey. So let's discuss this further in light of the survey that I launched. So look at this. You have a question that the first question that I had here was, when will you buy an electric car? Look at this. And 75% of us who filled the survey said, I will buy an electric car when I have seen electric cars prove themselves and when there are enough service stations on the road. Okay. Look at other answers. The green, it says not until hell freezes over. And then there is, the orange one says, I will likely be the first one to buy an electric car in my friends and family circle. So if I were to ask you, if you were to categorize the green response, which category that I discussed earlier would it come from? Would it be an early adopter or would it be a laggard for an electric car? You can type your answers in the chat window, please, guys. We want to keep it fully interactive. Feel free to ask me questions. And I would like to have you participate via the chat. Okay, Mohammed says laggard. Anybody else wants to say something else? Okay, Ravindran says early adopters. Sham says green one is a laggard. Cool. All right. So Mohammed and Sham are right. So not until hell freezes over is something that a laggard would say. No, I am not very savvy about electric cars. I don't think I'm going to ever buy. That's the stand that a laggard takes. Now tell me, what would be the category for the orange one? I would be the first one to buy an electric car in my friends and family. What would you categorize such a response as? Innovator, okay? Anybody else? Anybody else differs from him, from what Cham says? Okay. Mohammed also says innovator. Cool. Absolutely right. So these are the two extremes. So the green one is laggard, the orange one is innovator or early adopter. But look at the other two categories. They are very interesting categories. So let's look at the the red category, which is what most of us are currently in this stage for electric car. We're saying when I have seen electric cars prove themselves when there are enough service stations on the road. This is a pragmatic approach, right? This is a practical view. All of us are thinking about this product in a pragmatic way, right? So Saurav says, if I have to drive 1 lakh kilometer a year, then I'll go for electric, right? It's a very pragmatic, practical way. So Saurav, number one, will make his own decision, right? He's not saying when somebody else buys, then I'll buy. So he's making his own decision, but he has a logic to it. He's thinking through it and he has a use case in mind. And if this car matches that use case, then Saurav will buy the electric car. Look at the blue one. The blue one is interesting. It says, not until most people have made the switch and it becomes really inconvenient to drive a conventional car. So the difference between the red and the blue is the blue one is looking at others to recommend to this person, right? If others are buying electric cars, then I don't want to be left behind. It is mostly coming from a sense of FOMO, and hence then they will buy the electric car. Let's look at the second question. You will find that the answers are very similar, can similarly be categorized. Look at when are you likely to completely move away from your analog watch to a digital watch like Apple iWatch for daily use, right? Daily use a digital watch. Let's look at the answers. So there is a good category of blue ones. It says good number of blue ones in this category. I might never completely move away from an analog watch. Digital watches just don't feel the same to me. I also belong to this blue one because I feel the same about analog watches. I am more sentimentally attached to my analog watches. So I am a laggard, just like the other example we saw. And then you have the yellow one, the orange one. It says, I love my digital watch and I'm already using it full time. That's amazing. This is again indication of an early adopter, a person who has already adopted this product and has no issues about it. So blue and orange, laggard and early adopters respectively. Let's look at red. I will evaluate and switch if the additional features meet my daily productivity. So this is a pragmatic view, practical view. I will decide for myself based on the use case it supports. And then the last one is, if I see my friends switching to digital watches, then I'll talk to them, understand, and then think about switching. So I'll basically decide based on others' decision. I will not make up my mind. So this is how even this question's answers are categorized in those four categories. Let's quickly look at another one, mobile phone. The same story over here. 50% of us feel that I don't like to buy a very expensive phone and I try to use it for 3 years at least, right? That's a very, very practical view. Then every year I like to use the latest flagship phone. That's an early adopter trait, right? And then the red one says, I don't change my phone until it gives up and starts malfunctioning. Even then, I will first try to get it repaired. This is a laggard trade. Similarly, with wireless headphones, right? The vast majority, the red one here, these are really cool. I already have them, or I'm planning to buy soon. So this is an early adopter trade. You have already adopted a new phone, new earphone. Then you are saying the blue ones who are saying wired ones are perfectly fine. I'm not going to switch over. Again, the other extreme, the laggard extreme, and then you have people in between, right? It can make my life, if it can make my life easy, and sorry, yeah, if it can make my life easy, but I don't like to charge them every day. If batteries last for a week, then I'll consider that. It's a very pragmatic approach, right? And then there is, I will wait for my friends to buy, right? So where is that? I don't need a wireless. So these are really cool. I haven't, yeah, not sure. I haven't seen many people use it. So that's the one which will look at somebody else, right? So now let's come back to what we initially started talking about. So whenever a new product or technology is launched in the market self-organizes into these broad categories of buyers. You will have the innovators and the early adopters on the extreme left. These are the people who will buy the product. In the very first iteration, they will line up in front of Apple Store queues, and they will buy the latest iPhone. While the laggards are the ones who are the most difficult to convince to buy a new product. And then you have people in the middle. Remember the two different categories in the middle? One is called early majority, second one is called late majority. So early majority is those practical ones, the pragmatic ones that I was talking. Those who said, I will buy an electric car if they become affordable, if they have enough service stations out there, if the battery is affordable and it lasts for a long time, right? That's the practical approach. They will make up their own mind. They will look at it practically. Only if the technology has matured will they buy. While the late majority, this 34%, will say, oh, I will buy if my friend is buying it. I will look at how others have used it. I will learn from their experience. If they are buying it, then I will buy it. Okay. So now that's the core sort of concept that I wanted to explain. Now, here's the catch. When you launch a new product in the market, it's quite possible that you will find the innovators and the early adopters very easily. But your product will only be successful in the market if you're also able to sell to the early majority and the late majority. Laggards you can ignore because it's very difficult to convince them. They may never buy a product. But you must convince this early majority and late majority customers to also buy your product if you want to call your product successful. Can someone tell me why? Why is it important to sell to these two segments as well? Can I just call my product a successful product if I am only able to sell it to the innovators and the early adopters? Break even point. Anil says break even point. Percentage of your target group is more there. Absolutely right. Because majority of the audience is there. Yes, because then only you will be able to make them. All of you are right, guys. We cannot declare a product successful unless we are able to capture this market. One example that comes to my mind, a product which was able to capture the innovators and early adopters, but failed to capture early majority, late majority. Does anyone remember Google Glass? That was a very innovative product, fun product, very useful, but it could only appeal to this segment. It never was able to appeal to the early and the late majority. So ultimately, it failed, no matter how innovative it was, right? So for us to declare a product successful, we have to cross over this chasm. There is a deep wedge, a khai, as you say in Hindi. This chasm exists between the early market and the mainstream market. 99% of the products fail while crossing over from early market to mainstream market. And you have to cross this chasm to become a successful product. Okay? Is everybody with me so far? Because next I'm going to jump to how Royal Enfield crossed this chasm. Okay? All right. Now let's talk about Royal Enfield. So this is such an interesting brand. It has over 100 years history, if I'm not wrong, 75 or 100 years history. It was a British company, and they used to even make some parts for bullets or guns. and they used to supply to another factory during the World War II. That's why I think the idea of naming their bikes as bullets started with. We all know that Royal Enfield Bullet is one of the most iconic motorcycle brands. And I think it also is the longest in continuous production motorcycle in the world, if I'm not wrong. If it's not the at the top, maybe it's the second one, but I think it is the one. So this is a brand which has a huge legacy, glorious past, right? Very, very strong brand loyalty. These advertisements are pretty old, like black and white advertisements in the newspaper and the magazines. And this has cult following. Um, but this Royal Enfield company had a major problem, and I'll explain that problem to you. So, because of its heritage, because of its past, and because of its iconic styling, because of its unique product proposition, it always had a niche market. When I say niche market, very less number of people actually owned and used a Royal Enfield bike. And if some of you are old enough, if you go back 20 years, it used to be a rare opportunity to see somebody riding a Royal Enfield, and it used to command such an honor and respect to somebody riding a Royal Enfield bike, and not a Honda or a Bajaj or something, right? A Bajaj scooter versus somebody riding Royal Enfield would command different respect. Royal Enfield bikes, the classic 350 and the Bullet, they had that specific engine thump, the engine roar, which people used to always brag about, right? So it was a niche market. Not everybody could buy it and use it. It was a very loyal market. Those who bought it were always in love with this. It was an iconic brand that whenever you would see a Royal Enfield bike passing by, it would turn heads. But it was limited market. Not everybody was buying it, right? Yes, Bullet is actually the oldest motorcycle in the world, still in production, right? And nobody bought Royal Enfield as their first bike. It was always considered to be a difficult bike meant for mature riders, and it had a lot of problems, guys. The classic 350, and I'm talking about the mid to late 90s. The bike's design had not changed for over 22 to 30 years. By the time it reached the mid 90s, there were a lot of engine oil leaks. Engine used to seize up. It was very heavy. They were unreliable. They were very difficult to maintain, so on and so forth, right? But guess what? The loyalist market, the people who bought the Royal Enfield, were so loyal to Royal Enfield that if the bike would break down, they would say, "Oh, this is such a great occasion. The bike has broken down. It means now I have more time that I can spend with the bike to actually fix the bike myself." Breakdown means spending more time with the bike. So grease monkeys, people who could fix their bike themselves, they would buy the Royal Enfield. While the mainstream market, they were buying the more convenient bikes, like the Hondas or the Hero. The Hero Splendor was a hit bike of the 90s and even early 2000s, maybe even now, especially in the entry segment, right? And then just for convenience and maintenance sake, people used to buy scooters. So you see the problem over here. This bike is very popular in its early market, which is basically the innovators and the early adopters, but it is not being bought by the mainstream market. This is the problem that Royal Enfield was facing. The problem was so severe that in 1999, okay, little bit of history, the British company Royal Enfield had started distributing this bike in India through Madras Motors. One of the biggest orders that was placed, I think, to Royal Enfield was by the Indian military. They bought 800 bikes, and then they came up with an iconic military green color bike version as well to sort of commemorate that. And hence the heritage of the bike also includes the Indian Army, so it has pretty strong roots as a brand. And but then Royal Enfield UK shut down, and this brand was bought over by Eicher Motors in India, who continued the production of these bikes. Eicher Motors in 1999 was facing this problem that they were making heavy losses. The losses were coming because the bike was only being sold to the early market. There were not enough buyers in the mainstream market because it was such a niche product. It was not easy to use. It was not approachable for other customers. So they were on the verge of shutting it down. In fact, the CEO of the company, after a board meeting, went home and said, We have to shut this thing down. And then something interesting happened. So his son, Siddharth Lal, he himself was a very enthusiastic biker, studied in Delhi University. He used to ride his own bullet throughout the campus. He was very fond of the product himself. So he was a first customer, like early customer himself of the product. And when he came to know, he said, look, father, we have to say this. This product may not be selling well, but the brand is very valuable. Give me 2 years. Give me some time. Let me see if I can turn this company around. Right? So that's what he did. He joined in 2000, cut the losses, and was able to bring back the company from making pure losses to break even in just 2 years. And then from that point onwards, Royal Enfield has not looked back. They have launched successful products one after the other, and they have gained amazing market share. Now, how was he able to do that? So the very first thing he did is he went on a long range ride across India. Right? He said he took his motorcycle, started visiting various dealers, visiting various customers in different cities. He just wanted to get the pulse of what people are talking about. What are the common issues? What are the pain points they're sort of seeing on a day-to-day basis? So once he came back from that ride, the first decision he made is, in order to increase sales, we will not cut down our pricing. So, very important lesson here, guys. You will find this situation very commonly occurring in business when a product doesn't do as well as it was expected to when you launch the product. There comes a huge pressure from the sales team to reduce the price of the product, to make it more inclusive to buyers. And it's very easy to get into that trap. But Siddharth Lal said, I'm not going to give discounts on my bike to sell it to more customers. That's not the right solution. Because he said, my product brand comes at a premium, and that's the positioning of my brand. If I reduce the price of my bike, I will dilute the brand proposition. And hence, that is the worst thing that I can do, because I know the products are not doing well, but our brand is still strong. So I will not dilute our brand. That was the first great decision he took. Second, he said, there are some major problems, technical engineering problems with a bike, which make them unapproachable to new buyers. So instead of reducing the price, we're going to make sure that our bikes are worth that much. So he invested in precision machining processes in his factory. It completely sort of cut off all the oil leaks that engines used to see, which cut down on engine seizing. He also saw another trend. When the bikes used to leave the factory floor and were on their way to the dealers, a lot of the inventory used to get damaged during that transition. And he fixed it by ensuring that when the bikes leave the factories, they are put up in wooden enclosures so that then during the transportation, they are not damaged, right? So these are the kind of things that he did. But one of the most things he did is, while trying to do all of these changes, he ensured that he can retain as much of the original character of a Royal Enfield bike as possible, right? So, which meant that the original thump of a Royal Enfield engine, the roar that you feel, which is also one of the defining characteristics of the bike, the look and feel of the bike, that has to be maintained as much as possible. So we'll make our products better, but we will make sure that we don't lose the core appeal of the product because of which customers bought this, right? So they make sure that invested a lot of R&D, a lot of noise testing. They try to make the motor's piston longer and thinner so that they can still get a deeper engine sound. Now, one of the issues was the old engine, which used to be the cast iron engine, was very good at producing that noise, but a lighter engine, which is more precision machined and which is much better in quality engine wise, cannot by laws of physics produce that quality of sound. So, in fact, if you ask any long-time Royal Enfield bike rider, they will say, yeah, the new bikes are fine, but they still don't sound as good as the old ones used to, like the ones which used to fail on the road. So there was a little bit of compromise made still by moving to the aluminum engine, but he made sure that the look and feel of the bike is not compromised on, right? And then he did other things. So he brought new products out to the market. So once he fixed that engine problem, he brought new products out to the market. The very famous 650cc Royal Enfield Twins, the Continental GT 650 and the Interceptor, very international in design, I think this is also the time when he opened the London design studio, and these two were probably one of the first ones being designed there. And then it could also open up the international market for Royal Enfield. So he fixed the problems on the product. He made sure it's a complete product. He made sure that all these kind of issues that the old products have, those are gone. Yet we are not drastically changing the look and the feel and the character of the product, which makes it that iconic, which makes it that appealing. And then they launched other products in the market. Then they did some more things. So they added options for you to be able to customize your bikes. You can choose different colors of tanks, different seats, handlebars, so on and so forth. So you have the option of customizing, because when he was riding across India, he also found that people like to customize their bike heavily because they want to personalize it. They attach their emotions to it. So he said, we should provide options to customize the bike. So he did all these things, and this is the result that basically he was able to achieve. He really understood the vision of the product and the brand, number one. That was the most critical. He made sure that brand is not diluted, so we'll not give any discounts. We will build the complete product. We'll solve all the problems, engineering problems. We will add more layers on top of the product, a great buying experience. We will conduct rallies to entice people to buy Royal Enfield bikes and so on and so forth. He also fixed various distribution and supply chain issues that were plaguing the company, right? So this is what the result was that they were able to achieve in that decade. In 2000, from the brink of being collapsed as a company and shutting down, cut to just before COVID, the last financial year before COVID, they sold 8 lakh 24 bikes globally per annum. And Harley Davidson bike, I know it's not a fair comparison, it's a different price range bracket product, but at least a similar style or similar category in that sense. But so Harley Davidson, by contrast, shipped about just 2,18,000 bikes worldwide. And I think that was also the time when Harley closed their shop in India. Now they've come back with in partnership, but that's what they did. They were able to set up a global design house in London, and they launched these 650 twins. And he made the products accessible so that mass market could also buy the product. Now the mass market was not afraid of buying the product. So remember, the early majority, the ones who spoke about all the practical reasons, the pragmatists, they are the ones who would buy a bike only if it's reliable, if it has certain fuel economy, if there are enough service centers. That's what a practical thinking is. While the tech enthusiast is, if I'm a man, I will buy a Royal Enfield. He was attached much more sort of abstract emotions to the bike. And if my bike breaks down, awesome, all the better for me, because I'm going to spend more time with the bike. So that's the thought process approach of the early market, which they were already very good with. But then they were able to cross the chasm. They solved the practical problems over, and then they were able to capture the early market. So here's the lesson, crossing the chasm lesson from Royal Enfield. We have to create the whole product. Just the idea of a good product will only entice the early market. Just like what happened with Google Glass, you will not be able to sustain your business. You have to capture the whole market. And to capture the whole market, you need the full product, which means enough features so that customers will like the product. It should be bug-free. It should be error-free. It should have all the other things attached to it, like service network, dealerships, insurance plans, training, etc., right? And your distribution and supply chain, everything has to be perfect. Until unless you have a complete product, you cannot cross the chasm. Another quick example to drive this point home is, think about an iPhone when it was launched. If iPhone was launched with all its app store, etc., but no popular app support like WhatsApp or Google Maps or YouTube, would it have become as successful as it has today? The answer is no. Even though it was a great base product and a platform, you need the complete product, all the cherry on the top, for it to become a successful product in the market. So this is the first lesson. In order to cross the chasm, we have to make sure that we are able to build a complete product. And Royal Enfield does this very, very well. Siddharth Lal championed this. He did many things very correct. The most important one, he understood the vision of the product and the core soul of the product, made sure that that is maintained. but he solved all the practical problems to ensure that the mass market appeal or early majority market also comes to buy the product. I'm going to move to the second lesson from this. Just we'll pause 5-10 seconds. Does anyone have any question on this? The second product management lesson is focusing on jobs to be done. Okay, so now one of the core concepts is that instead of focusing on what features you want to build for your customers, focus on what they're trying to achieve focus on what the customers are trying to achieve by using it. So, it's a typical mistake that the product team, engineering, PMs, etc., that may make is that, if you're building a car, you may feel, okay, this is our car. Put in the best engine, amazing brakes, state-of-the-art tires, amazing upholstery, right? These are the features we are giving to the customer. This might be your thinking. But in reality, the customer is not buying the features. The customer is actually buying what he or she can do with those features. So in their mind, when they're buying a car, they are buying this vision. I look cool in this car. I'll become popular. So this is called the jobs to be done framework. And it's a very simple concept. It simply says that when we buy a product, we are essentially hiring something to get a job done. And if that product does that job well, then then next time when we want to do that job, we're going to hire that product over and over again. So if your product gets the job done for that customer, then your product will be popular because it will be used more often by your customer, and it will also spread to other customers, right? This is the jobs to be done framework. It's pretty simple and straightforward. So the next lesson, this lesson, how it was sort of amazingly imbibed by Royal Enfield is what brings me to this specific bike called the Royal Enfield Himalayan, which they launched, I think, in 2016 or 2016, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. Right. So it's been almost 6 years. No, 7 years. Or maybe 2018 is when they would have launched. So 4 years. No, 6 years. Yes, 2016. So they launched this in 2016. This was a very, very tricky decision for Royal Enfield guys. If you go to the website of Royal Enfield, you will find that none of their other bikes looks like this one. It's a very different category, which they had no experience on. Their brand was not suited to this kind of a bike, right? They were known for the bullets and the classics, etc. While this one is an adventure motorcycle, right? This is not something that they had ever built. So it was very, very risky move. A typical company would have been afraid to launch something like this because it could dilute your brand and completely confuse the audience, right? But they did this because they identified this job to be done. And that job to be done was to have a purpose-built specialized motorcycle for actually traveling in the Himalayas, right? That is the job to be done that they spotted. I want to play a quick, actual 2-minute video clip from the founder Siddharth Lal himself, when somebody asked him, how did you come up with this product's idea? So, quick background before I play the video. Even before the Himalayan was launched by Royal Enfield, and you would have seen this in various movies also. I think in Jab Tak Hai Jaan also featured Shah Rukh Khan riding this, military sort of color version of the Bullet in the Himalayas, right? So even before the Royal Enfield Himalayan, people were using the other standard bikes from RE to actually climb the mountains, even though these bikes are not purpose built for that function, right? They are not really suited for that environment, but still people were using it. So this is what Siddharth Lal had to say. So I'm going to play a bit of video, then I will pause it, and I will ask you that you could hear it, and then I will replay it. Okay.
For me, growing up as a kid, and I saw.
So were you able to hear it? Yes, no? Yes. All right. Let's go full screen.
This picture of Royal Enfields in the Himalayas and everything. And I was like, but one day I'm going to take an Enfield and ride in the mountains. And I've heard you say that as well, that we wanted to kind of do something that was, that paid homage to the relationship that we have with the mountains. Can you take us back to how it all started for us? I know people were taking our bikes, our bullets, our classics, our Thunderbirds, modifying them and bringing them up to the mountains. How and when did we think about coming up with something that was purpose-built to ride in the mountains?
I have to confess, the idea actually came even before everyone else knows about it. It was more like, 2008, 9. I used to be, working with different people and ideas. And for me, what's very clear, most ideas like this don't happen on one day. Let's make like a month. It just, the seed of something of an idea comes and then it just builds and layers form, and then some parts get removed and other parts get layered on. So it was really like that. So it was a seed of an idea that came because, our motorcycles have been up in the Himalayas, obviously the Bullet first in 1955, and then other motorcycles for decades. And I was riding, the classic up here in the mountains. It seems quite interesting, but yeah, it does the job. I mean, it did the job. We never thought of anything else in those days. So that was, 15 years ago or something. And, but that idea kept percolating that we should do something more special. And it really honestly came from that we should make a motorcycle that is purpose built for the Himalayan. I don't even know if I knew the term adventure tourer then. It wasn't coming from, these guys are making these bikes, let's make let's get into that segment. It wasn't a segment thing. It was, dude, what's going to be really good for the Himalayas? Let's make that.
Right. So if you could catch what he was trying to say, is that they really just spotted that specific job that they wanted to get done, right? They were already seeing people retrofitting their other bikes, like the Thunderbirds and the Classics and Bullets, so that they could be easy to ride in the mountains, even though they were not purpose-built for that. So when they saw this, they spotted this job to be like, hey, customers would love, or how fantastic would it be if we make a purpose-built bike that could go onto the Himalayas. They did not worry about, let's launch an adventure tourer. They did not worry about whether it fits our brand or not. Right? That's the core genesis of the idea. And because they started to solve the problem, the job to be done of having a purpose-built bike to ride in the mountains, that drove the specifications of the bike. And that's why it looks completely different from their other bikes, because this was purpose-built for this use case. And hence, we got a great product at our hands. Now, this became such an iconic product that it brought, again, just like the Crossing the Chasm concept, non-riders, people who may otherwise not go on a bike trip to Himalayas or Leh, etc. Now, because this bike is so easy to ride and it's much safer than the older other bikes like Bullet 350 or whatever in the Himalayas, because of its suspension, because of its high ground clearance, because of its low end torque, that a lot of non-riders started doing these trips to the Himalayas, including me. I discovered this, and I had never done a bike trip in my life, but this bike was so easy to ride that in 2019, I did this myself. For the first time ever, I went on a biking trip, landed up in Srinagar, all the way to Leh, and then down to Himalaya over an 8 to 10 day period, riding about every day about 6 to 8 hours, roughest terrain possible. And this bike was so good that for a novice rider like me, this made me a complete rider overnight, right? So again, they spotted the job to be done very well, and then they were able to sort of bring an excellent product to the market which appealed and converted non-users to users. One of the best stories that I can come across is this lady called Norali from Netherlands. She has a handle called Itchy Boots, and I'll just share the link to her blog here. You should read this out. It's an amazing blog, and she has a YouTube channel also, so you should definitely follow that. But one particular section I want you to read right now with me, and it's amazing. So she says that after I had quit my job, I booked a one-way ticket to India. Initially, I traveled as I had always done, with my backpack hopping from plane to bus to train, or in a tuk-tuk, which is basically an auto rickshaw. It was in the town of Manali that on my way that my way of traveling completely changed. Manali is known for its many motorcycle rental shops, and it was there that I rented out a motorbike for the first time. And this was the Royal Enfield Himalayan. I rode 3,000 kilometers. This lady, not a biker, 3,000 kilometers through Ladakh, Jammu, Himachal Pradesh, and even ventured all the way into remote Zanskar Valley by herself. It was her first real off-road experience, right? A foreigner in a foreign land, first time ever biking. What did she do next? She actually bought a Royal Enfield Himalayan. She named her Basanti, the bike. She named the bike Basanti, and there are a lot of YouTube videos that she started posting afterwards. She actually rode that bike, was not in Delhi, to Netherlands, 13,000 kilometers. Imagine. This is a great story, which essentially is an excellent example of how a product will build a completely new lifestyle, a completely new way of traveling for an end user. Now she's a regular biker and a travel blogger. Check out her YouTube link. But it was amazing that this is what triggered this entire sort of experience for her. And then other companies started copying Royal Enfield Himalayan. Look at the Adventure. Does it look similar or what? I mean, they just took the exact same design and which is so interesting, inspiring, but yeah, sometimes maybe even frustrating. Look at that. It's an exact replica of this bike. And when competition is trying to copy your bike exactly as it is, that's a great sign that your product is loved by the customer. So this is my second lesson from Royal Enfield, which is focus on the jobs the customer or the user is trying to get done. So the next one is listening to your customers. And this is exemplified by the next generation of Himalayan bike that Royal Enfield has launched. This is very, very recently launched on 24th of November. And it was launched at an amazing 3-day bikers festival at Goa called Motoverse. I'm going to show you some pictures from there. But when they designed the second iteration of the bike, it's very, very critical to know what changes they had in their mind to basically do those, and most importantly, what things they made sure that they retained from the previous version, and they listened to their customers amazingly well when they brought out this iteration of the bike. Now, of course, this is yet to be sold in the market. Deliveries have not started happening, but it has been given to a lot of travelogers for reviews. I have tested on it. Initial reactions are all amazing. But look at what was wrong with the previous version of the bike. First of all, happy things. So all customers loved the fact that the Himalayan old version 411 was very accessible, very easy to ride. It was great for off-roading. It also had amazing low-end torque. Basically, even when you're not revving the engine too hard, it can very easily climb mountains. You don't have to change gears too often, so it's very easy for you to ride. That same quality makes it easier for Himalayan to be ridden through the city traffic as well, right? And it's very rugged. These are the top things that customers always liked about this bike. But there were some pain points that customers continuously reported. The first one was it had very low power. So it was great for mountains, but it had low power. And above 90 kmph, you could easily feel that the bike is not in its comfort zone. You go above 90 kmph, and let's say if you're going from Bangalore to Mysore, it's an amazing highway. You would want to go to at least 120 kmph or something. But above 90, the bike starts vibrating. You can feel that the engine is not comfortable. So it was low powered for highway rides. So if you are doing a trip from Bangalore to Ladakh, your 70% of the trip, which is reaching up to Leh or Srinagar or Manali, wherever you start your trip from, is going to be boring because on highway it's underpowered. But only after that you can enjoy the bike. So that was one issue with this. It had soft suspension, so it would sink a lot. It lacked fancy features, like better electronics, interesting electronic features, ride-by-wire, LED lights, and stuff like that. So that used to put off some people, while some of the other bikes, like even Bajaj Pulsars, etc., would have those features. And the clutch of this bike was very hard to operate. These were the top pain points. And Royal Enfield really listened to all this customer feedback very, very well. I have an interesting video where the same person, Norali, actually did a review of this bike just a few days ago. Remember, she bought the original Himalayan in 2018, called it Basanti. This time around, Royal Enfield gave a pre-production version of the Himalayan Next Gen before it has been launched 2 months ago to Norali, so that she could ride across Ladakh. And then she has been putting her travelogue videos every week, leading up to the overall launch. Great marketing ploy, by the way, great use of social media, but also amazing thing that, they just gave this person who was so happy with the original bike this new bike to try and play with as one of the very early beta tester groups. So let's hear from her what she had to say about this bike.
It's a new bike, so I just wanted to share my thoughts on the bike, basically as a rider, not as a motorcycle journalist, but as a rider. And I will also compare it to the 411, so the previous model, because I've also ridden that one quite a bit. So first talk about how the bike looks. Now, this is always a very personal opinion, of course. I think it remains that rugged look that the previous version had, but now I think the design, especially around the tank, it's all more sleek and more modern. Now, personally, I really like how the bike looks. I think it looks absolutely awesome. Now, compared to the previous version, I think the main upgrades are in two departments. So let's have a look at those first. Now, first off is, of course, the engine, which is bigger and more powerful. It is a 452cc bike, and it delivers 40 horsepower at 8,000 RPM. Now, that's, of course, a massive upgrade from the previous model, which had not even 25 horsepower. Now, this bike also has 6 gears instead of 5, and it's liquid-cooled instead of air-cooled. And all of that combined makes that the bike feels a lot more powerful, and it's just so much fun to ride. What's a difference with Basanti? It's a lot more powerful. Feels like I have almost double the power. And that power was really, in my opinion, lacking a little bit in the previous version. Now, at the time, that was my very first adventure bike. So for me, it never bothered me. But now that I've been riding a lot more and became a little bit better, I really enjoy the extra power that this bike has. And it just makes it so much easier to just quickly overtake, and it's just a lot more fun to ride when you have a little bit more power. So besides a much quicker acceleration, the bike also has a much higher top speed. Now, I tried it and I topped at about 140, 141, but I can't say that I pushed the bike really until the limit. It wasn't really the place to do that. So it might top out even a little bit higher, but that higher top speed really helps if you want to take the bike on highways and just do some quick long distance. So I think that's a massive improvement to the previous model as well. Now, in my opinion, the second part where the bike improved a lot is the suspension. The bike now comes with upside down forks, and on the rear motor shock, it has 20 millimeter more travel than the previous version. Now, I am not a suspension expert, but I could feel the difference in suspension. So the bike sagged a lot less, and it didn't bottom out, which did happen with the previous version. The suspension on this bike is a lot better than on the previous version. This one is quite a bit stiffer, which I like a lot. I could actually even adjust a little bit because there are 7 positions you can put the suspension. Right, it just eats up the rocks like it's massive. For me, the main 2 improvements on the bike that were actually also the most necessary, I suppose, were the power and the suspension, and they've just done massive steps with those.
Well, cool. So hopefully you were able to catch that. But that's
it's a new.
That's amazing, right? So that's what Norali said, that I had just 2 problems with the old bike, and Ari was able to fix those exact specific 2 problems which had issues, right? So this is the power curve, the torque curve of the old one, which is green, and the red one, which is the new engine. They made sure that it's better at every sort of RPM level than the previous bike. So to summarize, they retained the easy to ride, accessible nature of the bike. It's still great for off-riding. It still has amazing low end torque, which will help it climb mountains as well as navigate through city traffic. It's still rugged, but now the power is almost double, 40 bhp. Much better suspension. They have very interesting fancy features. It supports Google Maps in its dashboard. It's a full digital dash. They've added ride-by-wire, added switchable ABS, all LED lights. And they have added a slipper clutch, which is much more lighter on the hand, so much easier for customers to ride. So one thing, guys, to note here is that this is not just a version 2 of the old product. They've actually redesigned it from scratch. The engine is completely new. The suspension is completely new. The body frame is completely new. In fact, every part of this bike is new. Nothing is used from the old bike. Yet, they made sure that what worked for the old bike has been retained and only the missing gaps have been strengthened so that it becomes a much more successful product and is able to sort of gather more market. Right? So now that brings me to the last section here, and I just need probably 5-7 minutes more. And which is another thing which Royal Enfield does very, very, very well is the complete product, right? So as an automotive company, you may think your main product is just the vehicle itself, the bike itself, right? But a company like Royal Enfield does not only look at that particular product as their main product, but they build a complete product offering around their main product. And they try to essentially fulfill the entire use case of a user, which they want to derive out of that product. So with a product like Himalayan or other bikes, the main use case is that I should be able to sort of ride in the mountains, have a great time on the Himalayan bike, and get a piece of that culture of adventure biking. That's what they're looking for. They're not just looking to buy a bike product. Hence, Royal Enfield also has an amazing selection of apparel that you need when you are actually riding this bike on a high mountain. So these rider jackets come with protection built in. They offer helmets. They offer all kinds of apparel, t-shirts, trousers, etc. Biker boots. They also have a line of glasses, sunglasses, gloves, everything that you need. So entire rider sort of apparel. And the goal was not to become an apparel company. The goal was never to start launching these products on Amazon or Myntra as well, so that we can gain new market share and get into the clothing business. No, the goal was very, very laser sharp focused. People who are buying our bikes or riding our bikes, or who are riders, they may buy a bike from us, but they will also need the riding gear. Hence, we give it to them so that they can have fulfillment of the key use case for which we have designed the bike. Do one thing: walk into a Royal Enfield showroom, and on the same day, walk into a Bajaj showroom. You will see the huge difference between the look and the feel and the appeal of a showroom. This is also part of the complete product offering. It's the experience that a Royal Enfield showroom offers to you, right? It feels as if by buying a Royal Enfield bike, you're going to become a part of a community, not just buying a one-off product like a bike. And I can't emphasize this more. Just actually walk into a Royal Enfield showroom and the same day go to a Bajaj, and then you will not need to hear my words to sort of feel the difference, right? It feels like a cafe. It feels like a place where bikers and travel bloggers will come and sit together and have a cup of chai and exchange their travel stories. It doesn't feel like a shop as such. Okay, that's the look and feel, and that's also part of the buying experience. That's part of the product offering. Another very interesting feature, guys. When they launched the new Himalayan at the Motoverse last week, at the same time, they also launched this adventure calendar, wherein they're saying that, we have planned out these different expeditions to the Himalayas for the whole of 2024. So from 26 Jan to 4th Feb, there is a route called Whiteout, which will take you from X to Y. You have another one called Himalayan Adventure Manang. You have another one which is actually happening in Tibet, Mustang, Odyssey. There's one which goes to the Everest Base Camp, so on and so forth. So you see, starting from 26 January all the way up to 9th October, they have given a chart of all these expeditions that you can do. So look at the story that they're building. Don't just buy the bike from us. We will give you the gear that you need to ride into the mountains, and then be part of our community. And you will also get a chance to have this great experience of riding in the mountains using the new bike that we are launching in the year 2024. And we have planned it all accordingly. Amazing, amazing feature to provide along with the bike. Right? Of course, this comes at additional cost, but you're completing the use case that the customer is essentially looking at. So I kid you not, this is the stage at which they launched the Himalayan, and right after that, the next slide was this adventure calendar. So it's as important in their mind as launching the bike itself. And of course, they're not going to make any money off of those adventure trips, right? They mostly be just operating it at a break-even point. But they're feeding that community and they're giving you that whole experience for which you bought the bike. Another thing that they do is they promote custom bikes. So they will encourage local shops, designers to build custom bikes out of their standard bikes, and they feature them at their events like the Motorcourse, right? Amazing way to fold the community into your whole narrative, right? So, and then finally, I'm going to show you some pictures and a quick video from this amazing 3-day bikers festival that they had. It was amazing. It was my first experience there. People from across the country come to this festival in groups of 40, 50, 60 biker gangs, men and women alike. And this entire 3-day festival have tons of activities. There are a lot of adventure biking sports there. There's some training of how to tackle different terrain that is given to you. There's a lot of music, culture, art-based events, people sharing their travel stories, amazing food, and they also set up an area where you can go and meet the product team which designed and built the new Himalayan. Of course, they launched the new Himalayan there, but you can go and meet the engine designer. You can go and meet the lead product strategist. You can go and meet the person who designed the tripper dash. And I met a lot of them, right? So there was something for everyone. Amazing experience. I'll just quickly take you through some pictures. So this was like the scene, on the first day, and these biker gangs from all across the country, were just getting into the festival. This is where they actually launched the new Himalayan. So it's a big stage, amazing lighting, great crowd. They launched the Himalayan, and after that there was a music concert. Benny Dayal came and performed. Right then, during the day, you had amazing adventure sports happening. This is a dirt bike racing. So some of the expert riders would come in and basically race with each other on this dirt biking track, which is very difficult, by the way, because on the turns there is amazing chance for you to slide out. And these were in different categories, both men and women. Right? So don't get me wrong. So all age groups, all genders. Then there was the biking school as part of this event, where they have designed a trail where you can take the bike and they will teach you how to tackle these kind of river crossings. When you go to the Ladakh area, the Himalayas, how can you ride the Himalayan better? So they have instructors that take you to a 2-day workshop. They'll give you a certificate at the end of this. This one here is sliding school, right? So if you want to learn how to slide your bike through corners, they will teach you that. I did this. It was fun, although scary. And then all the custom bikes from different designers being showcased in the Motoverse itself. They were amazing art and craft activities. Like, look at this. This is the activity where you could go in and you could paint the engine tank of a bullet. And this is still hand painted on a real bullet bike. This is one of the very few bikes which come with hand painted engine tanks, and even the factory they do that. So they had a demo where those factory painters, the specialists, would show you how they paint the engine tank, and then they open it up as a playground for you to play with it. Those kind of fun activities. And I said, amazing music, right? Not just the high intensity hip hop and famous musicians, but also local art, local cultures. This year is a pair of two musicians who were playing fusion music. This guy is from Persia, and he had a special instrument that he was playing with. So very carefully crafted and designed. It's not just about the bikes; it's about the whole community that they're seeing. And I'll just play this quick video, which gives you a pulse of what Motoverse was all about, and then we will take any questions you have.
You cannot describe that in words. that brings Motoverse 2023 to a close. Thank you so much for coming. It was bigger, better, more awesome than ever. Only one more year for all of us to gather here again. We're going to see you soon.
Right. So that brings us to the end of this session. And this is what I mean by complete product. It's not just the bike, the apparel, the store experience, the community that you can be part of. And they're not just selling you the bike, but they're selling you the dream to become one of these community members and have a great time, right? So very, very, very quickly, 4 key lessons from Royal Enfield. Number one, cross the chasm by building a complete product. It's not enough to just capture the earlier of the market. You will not succeed as a company. You will fail. You have to get the product into early majority and late majority who are practical customers. Focus on jobs to be done. That's how they conceived the new Himalayan. It was a very risky move, but they focused on the use case of building a purpose-built bike to Himalayan. Listen to the customers. That's how they amazingly improved and came up with the next gen bike. Retained what worked in the first version and only filled the gaps. They did not get greedy to build more features into it. And finally, build the complete product. Look at the experience. It's not just a bike. Their buying experience. Go to their store. Compare it with Bajaj's store. Look at their apparel. Look at the quality of their apparel. Look at these events that they keep doing. Look at the rider fest. Look at the adventure calendar that they launched along with the bike. Not just the bike, but where you will go with the bike. Right? So I think they are great lessons.